And but it was brought, now there were other political undertones that had also taken center stage, the coming into effect of the boundaries. Because if you recall, by 2010, we only had 210 constituencies, and the constitution envisioned 290 of them. So those 80, how are they coming in? And we had not done a boundaries review within 12 months, as was envisioned in the constitution. And there was a push to change the election date from August to December. So now the 2/3 gender principle got, embroiled inside that whole, political discussion, which culminated in the Attorney General seeking a Supreme Court advisory, which then delayed the implementation of the 2/3, saying that we could go ahead and have the election, that the parliament that was coming in, the first parliament under the new constitution that was coming in, would be able to sit without any constitutional challenges, because they were given a timeline of 2015 within which the mechanism would be in place. And to date, we still do not have a mechanism in place, having held 2 elections after the promulgation of the constitution, and you can see it remains a contentious issue. So the National Women's Steering Committee and Crown Trust have been in the center of this, and Uraya has been a committed partner throughout the journey in being able to push for this agenda. We have consistently given pushback, done the advocacy, including public interest litigation around this issue, and we are still here to continue doing it. However, we know that since the promulgation of the constitution, one of the most unique things that has happened is that for the first time in Kenya's history, we have more women than ever in leadership and decision-making spaces, because at the county level, they have come in by virtue of Article 177B, which requires that they will be nominated even when they are not elected in sufficient numbers. And so this has helped. And the requirement that even at the executive level, that we must have a minimum of 1/3 of the opposite gender. And while it is not 100% implemented, but the fact that they are required to have women forces the hand of the duty bearers to bring women on board. But we cannot relax. We are still very far behind because we are regressing. We are beginning to see more and more a disobedience of that principle. Currently, as things stand, the cabinet is not compliant. Of course, parliament is not compliant. The civil service is not compliant. The diplomatic corps is not compliant. The parastatal appointments are not compliant. 37 counties are not compliant. County executive committees are not compliant. But it is because that we have now embodied a culture of impunity in this country where the rule of law is not respected. So it really, it is 10 years, yes, a lot to celebrate, yes, but still ways to go. And we must continue to be vigilant. And Crown Trust and the National Women's Steering Committee, which I coordinate, we are committed to ensuring that we will remain vigilant. And we have seen Uraya Trust working with us very committedly in this journey of the implementation of the 2/3. And we hope that before the term of this current leadership is out, that we will actually have the mechanisms, because as you all know, and if you don't know now, you will know, is that Parliament is actually facing dissolution because of not implementing the 2/3 gender principle. A case that was taken to court, we are among the petitioners, CRU, Crown Trust, and the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. We were the 3 petitioners, and the courts found in our favor. This was in 2017. And so the CJ has been petitioned to advise the president to dissolve parliament. So it is serious business. It's about the constitution, and we are there. So the 2/3 gender principle, kando being a women's issue, yes, because it affects women for now, it is a constitutional issue. So I'll stop there because my time is gone, but I'm here if there are any questions. and all. I can talk more about the things that we've been doing, but we remain committed as Crown Trust and the National Women's Steering Committee to see the implementation of the 2/3 gender principle. Thank you, Pauline, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Daisy. Your mind is always very clear about the journey. Actually, you sometimes you sound like a book, you know. Thank you very much for giving us the history of where we have come from and where possibly we should be heading. Thank you very much for that. I will quickly invite Winfred. Winfred will take us through the programs that the Crown Trust and the National Women's Steering Committee are having with the partnership with Uraya. Winfred, are you there?
Thank you, Pauline. Liberty, kindly enable me to share the screen. Good morning, everyone. I'll be taking you through the projects Crown Trust and National Women's Steering Committee has implemented with the support of Uraya Trust. As you all know, we can't cover all we've done in this time we have. Daisy has already talked about the relationship between Crown Trust and National Women's Steering Committee, so I want to be going back to that. This is Uraya Trust. We say Uraya Trust is the premier national civic education organization in Kenya. I'm sure all of you know about it. Then their vision is an informed, empowered, and democratic nation with a mission to provide quality civic education and empower Kenyans to exercise their civic duty in order to realize their constitutional aspirations. The focus areas are entrenching constitutionalism, promoting free and fair elections, and addressing historical, political marginalization of women, youths, and persons with disabilities, marginalized and minority groups, and promoting internal excellence. As you all know, Uraya Trust works through implementing partners at the national and county levels, and Crown Trust is being the coordinating organization of the National Women's Steering Committee, is a national partner of the Uraya Trust. Over the years, Uraya Trust has supported us in projects aimed at achieving the actualization of the 2/3 gender principle. Daisy explained about the 2/3 gender principle. Actually, it's referred as the not more than 2/3 gender principle. And in Article 27 of the Constitution, we say that the state shall take legislative and other measures to implement the principle that not more than 2/3 of the members of the elective or appointive bodies shall be of the same gender. Then next we go to the projects that have been implemented between 2013 and 2020. There is the Manzonio Retreat, which happened in 2013. This is where the founding members of the National Women's Steering Committee met and agreed that there needed to be a coordinating mechanism for the network. As shared earlier, Crown Trust was elected to be the host or coordinating organization of the National Women's Steering Committee. As a follow-up to the meeting, an MOU was drafted and the members appended their signatures on it. The next project was the Beyond Quotas project. As the name suggests, it was to go beyond the 1/3 quota to the desired 50-50. The goal was the enactment and implementation of the legislative framework on the 2/3 gender principle. The outcome was increased demand from stakeholders nationwide for the implementation of the 2/3 gender principle. The outputs were increased levels of awareness creation on the implementation of the same, increased engagement of stakeholders countrywide in demanding for the same. The results: the National Women's Steering Committee members and other stakeholders developed the Green Amendment Campaign, which is a popular initiative which proposes creation of elective seats for women to attain the gender balance. At the end of the project, 300 signatures had been collected. We had over 60 women aspirants capacitated on the laws providing for women's inclusivity. Then we saw other stakeholders, due to the sustained push, come with initiatives such as the Duale Bill, the Sijeni Bill, the Kiwapa Bill, the Luthimbili Formula by the Gender Technical Working Group. Then overall, 7,140 persons were reached directly through the forums. Then millions were reached through mainstream media. There were many appearances on TV, radio, on the newspapers, and on social media. The picture story. This is, you can see several actors posing there with the hashtag Act on Gender Rule, which was a social media campaign for the signature collection for the GAC. You can see the Crown Trust ED and one of our national women members, Evelyn Haemba, who is the founder of who is the CEO of the Pambazuko la Wanawake Magharibi in all the Western Kenya counties. Then you can see the court cases there. You can see Marilyn Mudhoni Kamuru and Daisy Dorin Jerop Amdani crew on the petition was to declare the cabinet unconstitutionally constituted due to failure to meet the gender balance in 2016. This is the continuation of the same. This is also in 2016. You can also see that we had others enjoined: the Kenyan Human Rights Commission, FIDA, GEC, Law Society of Kenya. And this is the judgment, the famous John Mativo judgment, which declared Parliament unconstitutionally constituted and asked that they would implement the same within 60 days. This is the research on the cost of implementing the two-third gender principle. This was to bank the theory that it is too expensive to have women represented. Though it was supported by another development partner, but it greatly linked to the work we were doing for Uraya, and also it also informed the future work. This was funded by Crown Trust, and the consultants were IEA. We have the next project, Consolidating the Gender Agenda in Leadership and Governance. The goal was adherence to constitutionalism on the not more than two-third gender principle. Then the goal was increased number of women, youth, and PWDs in leadership. Let's rush through. Then the objectives are to foster adherence to constitutionalism on the two-third gender principle. The next one was to build the capacity of political parties and women in party leagues. The results, we all know that there was improved performance by women in 2017 elections with 3 women governors elected. It's unfortunate that we lost Honorable Joyce Laboso, 3 women senators, 23 MPs, which was an increase from 16, 96 MCAs, which was an increase from 84 from 2013. We developed a scorecard report with the first edition in 2017 and the second in 2018, looking at the elections from 2013 and 2018, which are the first 2 elections since the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution. So this audited the different parties and also looked at appointive positions. Litigation, we continued with the same. The bills, we have the Duale Bill and Sholei Bill tabled. The Sholei Bill borrowed from the GAC concept of creation of elective seats. We supported Kajiado County gender policy development, and now years later, the process is complete and it's up for public participation. We also built the capacity of MCAs from Kajiado, Kericho, West Pokot, Elgeyo, Baringo. We also collaborated with the State Department of Gender Affairs and also the IBC, and from the meetings with the IBC, we shared court orders that were relating to them, and they called for audit of the party nomination lists. Then 155 political party officials were capacitated on adhering to gender and other inclusivity principles. Then this number of people, 15 men and 168 women, participated in demonstrations to Parliament to challenge the cabinet list, which was not well representative of women, youth, and persons with disability, and it did not also observe regional balance. We say a total of 22,252 persons were reached directly and millions through media. Here the consultant presents the scorecard. You can see it's about the National Assembly. This is one of the booklets, the second edition that was developed in 2018 after 2017 elections. During a forum with the aspirants and members of political parties. That is the former commissioner of IBC, Roslyn Akombe, sharing how political party primaries went on. This is a meeting of the Ford Kenya Women League. This is the induction of the 12th Parliament. You can see the former CS Cicely Kariuki addressing the women members of the Senate and the National Assembly. This is the demonstration we spoke about. You can see the hashtag there, recall the list KE, whereby the cabinet list was recalled and more women were brought on board. Here the petitions were served to the parliamentary clerk, the man on the left. One of the National Women members, Winnie Maru, during one of the public hearings of the Duale Bill, which the National Women Steering Committee supported. During these forums, the talking points developed by the National Women Steering Committee were shared, and also a memorandum in support of the Duale Bill. This is Honorable Martha Karua during a meeting with the NAC Kenya party officials. Some members of the National Women Steering Committee meeting the IBC. Our former program manager addresses the Kajiado County CECs and governor on the gender policy development. A meeting of, that's the consultant on the development of the gender policy. And this is a former woman MCA aspirant from Nakuru County, sharing a story of the experiences during the former elections. Then there is a petition seeking, among others, to declare National Assembly unconstitutionally constituted. This was by Crew, Crown, and Ngek was also enjoined. This was about the 2017 elections. Then later after that, that's a forum in Machakos County, where Uraya Trust supported us with the constitution booklets. You can see we've shared with the participants and they are referring to them. Then the current one, Women Holding the Line. As the name suggests, we are telling women not to yield to pressure and really stand in the gap and fight and defend their rights. The goal is to contribute towards promoting realization of women's rights and entitlements as enshrined in the Constitution. The outcomes there, increased level of awareness on provisions of women gains, increased participation and engagement of women in governance processes, and in raising an alternative voice in response to issues affecting them. We are talking of an alternative voice because we know there are many voices there which purport to represent women, but in the real sense they don't. So what genuine alternative voice is there? The results, you'll notice most of these are like the output level, because this is a project that is ongoing. Stakeholders were engaged in the development of the technical position paper, which looked at the history of constitution making and the current status of women, among others. Following that, TOTs were trained for execution in the counties and other materials developed. Then the other one, we've been collaborating with other CSOs. Daisy spoke of the dissolution of parliament. There is a renewed effort towards the same. You remember LSK speaking on the issue, and we participated in one of the press conferences. Crown Trust has also participated in other forums with other CSOs, such as the Nisisi, when we were celebrating the Sabasaba. You have all seen the documentary as the meeting was starting. Then today, we targeted 42 stakeholders, and we are glad to have more on board as we celebrate the gains and take stock. Then as from tomorrow, we'll be sharing a documentary showing the same. This is some of the materials that came from the technical position paper showing the current status. We'll be sharing them later with you. So that's that. You can see that illustration that now the track is paved for women. All the blockades have been removed. And now women, we are saying lazima tukue roho juu, kwa pamoja tupiganie haki zetu. The illustrations are meant to appeal to all, and especially maybe those who are illiterate or semi-literate and can't read. At least they can speak to them. Then we say, because Kenyans have rights, so we would like to defend our rights. Thank Thank you so much. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you, Pauline.
Bravo, bravo, Winfred. That is really, really great. Really great. Thank you for that elaborate explanation of where Crown Trust started and to where Crown Trust is moving to. I don't know whether there is already representatives from Uraya. I don't know if there is any of them logged in who would be speaking.
Yes, I am here.
Elizabeth, Karibu,
Yes.
we will give you a few minutes to give a brief.
Yes, asante sana. My name is Elizabeth Kirema. I work with the Uraya Trust. I'm glad to be here to participate in this webinar, and thank you so much, Daisy and Winfred, for that presentation, really showing us where we have come from in terms of promoting women's rights and gender equality in this country, and the support that Uraya has been able to give. So as Winfred has rightfully said, Uraya, we are a national organization that has been doing work under civic education, civic engagement, and institutional transformation. And the way we do our work is through partners. So Crown Trust has really been our partner in helping us to realize results and our key focus area on addressing the historical political marginalization of women in this country. So thank you so much, Crown Trust, for the work that you've been able to do through our support. You have really documented the achievements that we have been able to achieve so far. And we are saying that we'll have to continue with the journey. The issue of that gender rule is still an issue, and we'll continue supporting the work that you are doing to ensure that that is realized, and also ensuring that we are able to safeguard the gains that the current constitution has had for women of this country, and also continue to address the gaps that still exist. Now that Winnie has talked about Uraya and the support that we have been able to give to Crown Trust, and what Crown Trust has been able to do, we are also celebrating our 10 years. You can see my screen. So I'll talk about Uraya at 10. As we celebrate Katiba at 10, we are also asking ourselves as Uraya. We have been in existence for the last 10 years as a trust, and therefore we are also asking ourselves what has been our achievement, what has been our impact, and therefore allow me to talk more about what we are planning to do as we celebrate Uraya at 10. We started in the year 2000 as a program, a national civic education program. A number of you will be aware of the NCEP 1 and NCEP 2, but in 2010, we transitioned into a trust. And since then, we'll be celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. So for Uraya at 10, what we are saying is that for the last decade, we have played a significant role in promoting democracy and fostering the culture of constitutionalism in this country. We have also been a leading civic education provider, working with the civil society organizations across the country in ensuring that we have a democratic culture. So this year, on 8th of December this year, we are planning to celebrate the 10 years that we have been working on this area of civic education, and asking ourselves, what have we been able to achieve? And the objective of Uraya at 10 celebrations is first to sensitize Kenyans and other stakeholders on the work that Uraya has done for the last 10 years, including the lessons that we have learned. We'll also be celebrating our achievements over the last 10 years. I'm sure part of what Crown Trust has shared will be part of the achievements that we've been able to achieve for the last 10 years. And also as looking at where do we want to go moving forward. We'll also be showcasing the Uraya journey from where we have come from and where we are planning to go for the next decade. And we'll also use the platform to really launch our strategic plan. So there are a number of activities that have been organized leading to the event. And some of these activities are county-based activities, regional-based activities that really are meant to sensitize Uraya stakeholders as well as the general public of the Uraya Trust at 10-year celebration. The events will also be showcasing the work at Uraya at the county level with a specific focus on the achievements that we have been able to get over the last 10 years, and also to excite stakeholders on the general citizenry to look forward to participating in the main festival that is planned for 8th of December this year. So there'll be also a major festival, which we are calling the Civil Society Celebration Week, that will be held on 1st to 7th December this year, whereby different civil society organizations will be sharing the work that has been supported by Uraya for the past 10 years, with an emphasis on the transformation that they have made to the society. The festival will also feature entertainment in the form of theater, drama and plays, film and documentaries, poems, and also spoken word to tell the Uraya story. And and listening to Crown Trust, what you have done, you really play a key role in this during this week. We'll also be showcasing a number of publications, including the Constitution that we were able to just put together in a format that many Kenyans can read, and also giving a story of our evolution, the evolution of civic education in this country. We'll also be showcasing the different formats that have been adopted in working with the different stakeholders in the delivery of civic education, including our implementing partners and media. So at the culmination of the festival week will be to showcase the major achievements, celebrating and also recognizing and awarding the people who have contributed to Uraya's growth, and also unveiling the new Uraya for the next decade. So these are the timelines. As I've said, we have lined up a number of county-based as well as regional-based activities. This will be taking place from 25th September to 25th November. Then we shall have the first national event, which we are calling the Civil Society event, which is scheduled for 1st December to 7th December. And this is where by the county-based IPs will be showcasing their work at the national level, including the implementing partners who have worked with us for the last 10 years. A major event, which will be December 2020, where we shall have panel presentations talking about our history as Uraya, where we started, what we have been doing, where we are planning to go to in the next 10 years through a documentary, and also sharing our impact for the next, for the last 10 years. What impact have we been able to have for the last 10 years and where we are planning to go. So this is what we plan to do as Uraya, as we celebrate Uraya at 10, as we also celebrate Katiba at 10. So I'm looking forward, and I hope that Crown Trust, being one of our key partner on ensuring and promoting the rights of women in this country and advocating for the enactment of laws and the policies that would facilitate the attainment of the 2/3 gender rule and gender equality in this country, that will also be able to join us as Uraya as we celebrate our work for the last 10 decades. Thank you so much. I want to stop there.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I see we are doing pretty well with time, but we are behind schedule. With about 10 minutes. Next, we shall have our keynote speaker, Caroline Lintari. I know you're very passionate about gender issues, and I want to ask you to keep it within the 30 minutes allocated. Caroline will take us through how the Constitution has brought women into the mainstream and how it can be safeguarded. And she will also talk about the challenges that not implementing Article 81 of the Constitution has caused. Caroline, Karibu, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Karibu sana, Caroline.
Asante, asante sana. Good morning, everyone. Sorry?
This is a brief intro of yourself, and then we proceed with your keynote.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, my name, as you've been told, is Caroline Lintari Chesang. I am a governance and gender expert. I'm a consultant on many other things also, and especially on organization development. I have a passion for organization generally. And so that is what I do. I have been one for the last 7 years. But let me just say that before I joined the consultancy sector, I actually worked with the Henry Ball Foundation. And just a moment. Sorry, I'm getting my son to give me a timer so that I can keep to the time. Yeah, so I work with the Henry Ball Foundation where we used to run the gender forums. And for me, these discussions that we are having are very important because I could see how it took us to just have men and women sit down and talk about issues that not only affect women, but also affect men. Just before joining the Henry Ball Foundation, I had been at the Coalition on Violence Against Women, where again, I worked for quite some time, just looking at matters of violence and how it affects women on a day-to-day basis. And before the Coalition on Violence Against Women, I had been working with the Association of Media Women in Kenya, AMWIC, again looking at how the media portrays women, and especially women and leadership. And so I have spent a lot of my life talking about women. At the Henry Ball Foundation, I think one of the things that I loved most was engaging with women, not only in Kenya, but women also in Somalia, a very, very difficult terrain. Kenya, we are even nowhere near where Somalia is in terms of just gender issues, in terms of women's access to leadership, and even women's rights, just generally. And so I spent 7 years just helping women and to organize and to ensure that in the spaces of development and the spaces of leadership, spaces of politics, their voices can be heard. And so after that, I decided, now let me get out. Actually one of the things that I realized as I worked in an organization, I worked for a donor agency, was basically the need for capacities to be built for people to engage and engage effectively. Because then we can engage, we can have workshops that at the end of the day, we put a tick and say we did it. We put a tick and say we spent the money that was given to us. But what is the impact? What results and what outcomes are we having? And that was one of the motivations, of course, among many, that I also wanted to spend time with my children. But that was a really big motivation for me. And so when we have forums like we are having today, where people are just sitting together to talk about things that matter, when we pick the issue of affirmative action, to talk about where are we at, and to think together about how we can move forward, to build one another's passion about the issues, to ensure that people are not scattering us. Because again, how do people manage certain sections of society? Like now, women, let me take the women constituency. How are we managed? We are managed through being scattered. where we cannot come together, think together, speak with one voice, and get one direction of movement. If we are pulling in different directions, then we are not able to move. They're not able to attain what we want. And so forums like this one, Uraya and Crown and Crew, and everyone else that is involved, the National Women's Steering Committee, where women can just be brought together. I think these are things that I really want to laud personally at a very personal level, but also to say that I think we also need to give ourselves some hope as women and say, as long as we are talking, as long as we are developing actions, however long it takes, we will get there. And we need to keep telling each other that you're going to get there. And so I think that is how I wanted to open it up. I am an optimist to the core. Those of us who know the terrain in Somalia, it is a place that people think is hopeless. But I worked for 7 years saying there is hope. And even today, as I look at their president and the vice president fighting, before the, before cameras, I still maintain that there is hope. And so even for us women, I think there's a lot of hope. And we need to keep telling ourselves that. Even as we look at, the 2,000 gender principle and how far we have come, that some things have not worked, others have worked. And sometimes someone can throw up their hands and say, is it even worth it? Is it even worth the fight anymore? Do we even have any more fight in ourselves as women? Is it worth it pushing every day? Every meeting we go to, we feel like we want to bang tables and to say, someone listen to us. I want to say it is worth it. And we're going to speak and you're going to push and we are going to keep talking. If we need to stand on the table, we shall stand on those tables and say we must be listened to, because at some point or the other one, not in the far future, I am convinced that something is going to give way. But the only way of ensuring that something will give way is we keep pushing. The moment you stop pushing, then everything goes back to the normal. And I feel sometimes that the pushback that you are getting on the 2,000 gender principle, I don't even think this is part of my notes, but let me say it anyway, is the fact that some people somewhere or some quota somewhere, some system somewhere would want to push against women and push against even those who are progressive on ensuring the 2,000 gender principles, because it's not just about women, it's also about ensuring even men. If there was to come a time when they are also finding themselves on the receiving end, they would also want this to work for them. And so those who do not want this to work will push back to ensure that women can give up at some point, that women can think it is too difficult. And I feel that is the crux of the matter, that somebody is pushing against this, pushing against women's advocacy, pushing against the lobby, pushing against the organizing, pushing against the movement to see whether we can break as women and just give up and go back, pack our bags and go and sit in the house and say, you know what, we were just not meant for this. We were not meant for leadership. We were not meant for politics. We were not meant for CEO jobs. We were not meant for corporate serious jobs and such. But if we keep pushing, if we keep talking, if we keep insisting, something will give way. Someone said water is soft when it flows down a river. I grew up up country in Meru. And would go to the river sometimes, and some of the small rivers actually would just go and look at the way the water flows. But when it would rain, even when the water would rise, a lot of the streams that would actually carry people don't make noise. Water flows quietly, but it keeps gathering momentum. And I feel, and it is the same water that will carry rocks. It is the same water that one day you will find it has split a rock into two. Look at the strength of the water and look at the strength of the rock. But water in its small little insistence will flow, and one day, it can even take years, but one day it actually splits a rock. It actually carries off a rock. It actually causes a landslide. It actually goes and you see the bands are keeping on extending as it's moving. And so I think my opening position is that first and foremost, the women's movement and the women in their agenda cannot give up. We must keep pushing, we must keep moving. And so yesterday when I was having a conversation with Crown, we were saying in the 30 minutes, what are some of the really important things we want to look at and we want to reminisce about? As we look through the constitution at 10 years, what are some things that we want to remind ourselves? Because someone said, some things we need to be reminded over and over again, however much we have heard them. Sometimes it is hearing something 10 or 20 times that helps it to settle in our hearts and to convince us sometimes that it is possible. And so one of the things that I wanted us to think about this morning is really, and this is coming again from a statement that I read that just hit me. It hit me like a blast on the face. Someone said, affirmative action is now as much a hated word in many quarters as liberal, the word liberal, and the word feminism. When people hear feminism, a lot of people, their hair simply rise. They think of women and women taking over and women getting forceful and women taking a place, displacing somebody, which is not true. When people hear the word liberal, say liberalism, this is a liberal country, it is a liberal society, people get scared of that word. And someone said the word affirmative action is beginning to scare people in the same way. Why? Because many of them don't even understand what it is. They don't understand the essence. They don't appreciate how good affirmative action actually is. And so what is affirmative action? I just went out and I said, let me actually relook what people have said, the way the people have defined affirmative action. And somebody said affirmative action is actually a set of procedures designed to eliminate, first, unlawful discrimination, and secondly, to remedy the results of such discrimination, and thirdly, to prevent such discrimination in the future. And so one, to eliminate what exists as unlawful discrimination or discrimination against whichever sections of society. Women, people with disabilities, the youth, the younger women are also doubly discriminated, minority communities, and so on and so forth. There are many sections. You can find regions, geographical regions that are actually discriminated. For example, why are people suffering so much in the Senate over resources? They're saying that certain regions, not people this time, regions of the country actually need affirmative action. It is the same. So affirmative action is not only for women. When Turkana is saying we need more resources than Kiambu, where I live, or they're saying we need more resources than Meru, which is also believed to be a rich country. I grew up a rich county. I grew up there. I don't see the riches. But anyway, people say we are rich, so I don't know how rich we are. But when Turkana is saying, Turkana County is saying we need more resources. When, for example, Baringo will say we need more resources. When Wajir will say we need more resources, it is affirmative action, basically saying somebody ran ahead of us. We want to be given a time, some resources to help us catch up. Then we can be at the same plane and we can develop. But why is this word affirmative action causing so much jitters in many places or in many areas? Now, one of the things that also I was thinking about yesterday, as I said, we need to eliminate discrimination. We need also to prevent discrimination from happening, and we need to remedy what has happened because of that discrimination. And this is the affirmative action that we are asking for as women. We are not asking, and I think people need to carry this as a message, that the affirmative action that even the 2-thirds gender principle gives us, it is not to displace anyone from anywhere. It is basically to say, remedy what women have gone through. Remedy the fact that, and Daisy actually alluded to this, not even alluded, but talked about it in her opening speech, when she said half of the population has been treated like it doesn't deserve. And that's the population of women. And yesterday, when I was thinking about why should we remedy the discrimination that has happened against women? And I just thought about we women in our different roles in the society. Me as a woman, I speak today as a woman, I speak as a mother, I speak as a wife, I speak as a sister, I speak as a daughter, I speak as many things. And all of us are all those things. And I just thought through women and what they do in society. And I said, is it possible for society to actually be what it is without women? Even when we have big manufacturing plants that are run by other people, we can count the number of manufacturing plants that are actually run by women or owned by women. They are there as workers, but owning them and being, at the end of the day, the people who are getting the most profit from these things. There are very few, even in this country, very, very few. But where does the raw material come from? A lot of it is produced by women. Women are the ones who are holding agriculture and farming in this country. We produce the labor, we are the ones who go to till the land. A lot of the times, we will not even get what comes out of that produce. The husbands will go and get it. That has been remedied in a few places. Of course, the affirmative action that has come up and all that, the raising awareness, raising and so on, has also empowered women to also be able to reap some of the benefits. But if you look at it, the agriculture sector where women mainly are, when you put the middleman or the middlewoman in the middle, the person who produces gets the least. And yet there wouldn't be this manufacturing being done if the woman didn't do the work down there to ensure that the coffee has been picked and the tea has been picked, that the mishiri, the French beans, have been planted for them to go for export, for someone to get export money. It is the woman who's putting in that. And so at the end of the day, I was asking myself, if we didn't bring up children and ensure that something that people talk about maternity cover, and when people talk about maternal health care and postnatal, prenatal, postnatal, and during the delivery period, and I hear people talking about things like women are being given, it is like women are being given what I call it? They are being given favors. I ask myself, if we did bring up children who actually are healthy, where would you get doctors and professors and architects from? If we did do enough and breastfeed them and ensure that these people are healthy enough for them to be able to get the kind of education they need, where would you get your engineers from? It all begins with a woman. And so at the end of the day, when you're talking about the 2 gender principle and the fact that women now are being allowed access into leadership, where women can be able to speak about things that affect women, the core and the foundation of the society, it is of paramount importance. It is not something that should be played about with. It is not something that should be treated as a token for women. And we've been talking about this in forums that the 2 gender principle is not a token for women. It is something that even the whole society should actually be pushing for to ensure that the foundations of life, the foundations of the society, the well-being of the society is actually strengthened, because that foundation is the woman. Whichever you look at it, the woman as a nurturer, the woman as a producer of the raw materials, the woman as the thinker. Someone said a woman can do 50 things at the same time, and no pun intended to our male colleagues. But a man at most would be able to think about one thing and do it perfectly. But a woman will be doing 10 things at the same time. And someone asked a question in a quote and said, if people are uncomfortable with affirmative action, then what is the plan for ensuring there is a level playing ground for opportunities? And these are the questions that we should be asking people as we move forward, as people struggle with implementing the 2 gender principle. Then what is the alternative they have? Because this was the only thing that you could get that would actually work to ensure that women have been put to where they should be, and for society to be able to develop as a whole, and to be able to reap the most benefit that we can from what a woman is. The woman is the nurturer. If today I was to wake up and decide I am going off, I'll go off to work for 3 months and my baby is 1 month old, am I able to delegate? Can I be able to delegate breastfeeding to my husband? It is not possible. And so there are some things that we can't change about who a woman is. The question is, if we do not want to ensure that there's affirmative action that allows women to also be part of, as Daisy said, that political leadership is very, very important. This is the seat of decision making. This is a seat where resources are actually put into different priorities. If we are not at that table, talking from there, then what is the alternative? How do we ensure that breastfeeding mothers are taken care of? How do we ensure that women are listened to when they say we want certain things done for us? How do we ensure that we utilize the brain of the woman? Because I believe the brain of the woman works differently from the brain of a man. I'm not saying anyone is better than the other one, but we need the two brains at the same time. And if we look at societies that have women only, there is something that lacks. Even if we look also at societies that have women only, there will be something that will lack. Why? Because these brains work differently. We process things differently. And so if people do not want us to enter into leadership through affirmative action, again, because this affirmative action is important, because the door for women has been shut for so long. And so it needs to be opened and keep being opened until it is open and wide enough for women to walk in and out freely without any barriers. But as it stands now, without affirmative action, the door is still shut. Maybe there is a small opening. We're saying now we are seeing more women being elected. A few more women. It is not as bad as it was, but it's still not where it should be. And this is how now, at least the 2/3 gender principle has opened in the Constitution, has opened for us a forum for women to see to where they should be. But then, how has it played out? We always say affirmative action must work through some 3 A's. And 3 A's, one, is that it should give us access to leadership. Give us access to leadership, which we did not have before, which women have to fight for so hard. You fight so hard and get very little results because of the system that is working against us. But with affirmative action now, this gets a little bit opened. The second thing that affirmative action should help us to do is to give us a place where we can set now our own agenda. Set an agenda for women's prioritization of women's issues. Then the third thing that we should have is accountability. Accountability to the women's constituency that is behind. So that when I enter into leadership through affirmative action, I ought to remember that I am there because of the women's constituency. And I've heard people say, and really without respect to our Shimiwas, I've heard people say, really, I'm not here because I am a woman. I am here because I am a leader. But I tell myself, if you entered there through the affirmative action vote or through the affirmative action principle, then it means you are there to represent the women's constituency. That means you should carry the agenda of the women. But what has happened? As it stands now, affirmative action has really not given us access to leadership. Why? Because a lot of the times the leaders who go there, we're not even given a chance as women to decide who actually represents us in the women's constituency. Secondly, when the agenda is being set, the agenda is set by the person who nominated, by the person who appointed. If it was women appointing women to represent them through the affirmative action principle, then it would mean that you also set the agenda of what you carry into that leadership. Now we have not been given that. And so at the end of the day, the accountability to the women also has been weak. And these are some of these that are actually also eating us up. And that is why we find that sometimes when people are talking about affirmative action, they use that specifically to define that. And they say the women who are in leadership are not representing women. First and foremost, may I tell them, hush. I love the fact that women are there. Allow us as women to go back to our own corner and fight with one another and ask each other, what did you do for us? You know, but do not talk about women out there when you're not a woman. Allow us to go and talk to each other, and we come and wrestle with Daisy and with the other one and with Pauline and the other one and the other one and with my local, my woman MCA. I ask her, Mama, why is it that particular our dispensary does not have immunization for children, or maybe the antenatal clinic is not working? Allow me to come and ask those questions as a woman, but don't tell me that women are useless. They're not useless. And so this AAA of us being able to access, us being able to set the agenda, us being able to also call to account the women leaders and other leaders that we have sent into different positions is very, very important. So where are we at? We have said there's generally a lack of compliance with the 2/3 gender role at all levels, and that needs to be redressed. And I do not want to dwell on that because Daisy has talked about it and talked about the county assemblies that are still not, some of them are still not even accountable. I think both of them, and they still haven't even reached the threshold. And the county executive arms, those ones, even it is even difficult to speak about them. When you go to the county assembly itself, where are the women MPs in the counties? Even where then the numbers are there. Are they sitting as chairs of committees? Are they sitting as vice chairs of committees? Even when a woman is made a chair of a committee, what kind of a committee are we given? Or it is just tokenism, or you find chairman, vice chairwoman, chairman, vice chairwoman. It is rare to find even a woman who is a chair. And yet we are saying, if you look at the technical paper, which I am hoping, because it's really the technical paper that Winfred talked about is very, very rich in information. And I'm hoping all of us are going to be able to access it. You can also read and get to learn more about what is out there. It's very, very well analyzed. If you look at it, you find that even in some places, you find a committee, a man is sitting as a chair of 2 committees. And yet there are women there who could have taken that chair. How come that then people are not feeling that women can carry the agenda? How do we have, I cannot remember which woman, which female senator was talking the other day, and Michael, Vicky, please give me my charger for the laptop. It's going off. And when you look at it, and I listened to a woman senator, a female senator, one of our sisters saying that we were threatened as the nominated senators and told not to come to the House when they were having this discussion on the revenue sharing formula. And I was asking myself, but the woman is being threatened angrily. Where are we at as a country? And I'm really proud of this particular. I can't remember it was because I was running between the kitchen cooking and listening to the debate. But I felt really bad that somebody, you are a leader, a senator, like any other, but somebody is calling to threaten you and tell you, usionekane in the House of Senate today, because there's a vote and there's a debate that is going on. So where are we at? What really, in terms of, even if when we talk about affirmative action and we are now getting more women, but how are we even being treated once we sit on these seats, on those seats of decision making? Because that should be the next thing that you're talking about now. Not only should we access, but we should be treated with dignity to set our agenda and to be given space to talk about issues that affect us as women. Now, quickly, because I know my time is going and I have like 5 minutes or so. First and foremost, I'll start by saying that to abandon affirmative action, it will be tantamount to us saying there is nothing more that can be done about discrimination. And there is a lot that can be done. And so first and foremost, the war is not over. The battle is not yet won, but we'll keep pushing because we cannot give up on the affirmative action agenda. Now, I will just say 8 things quickly that I feel 9. Quickly, I'll just go through them. I've written them. I'll just go through them quickly that I feel we need to do to ensure that first and foremost, we put a protective guard around the issue of the 2/3 principle as stipulated in the Constitution. And secondly, to move it now into actualization. A man called Paul Mooney said, I do not want affirmative action because it's all affirmative without action. So we're saying we need affirmative that has got action. Not just have affirmative of people saying, oh, you know, women are very important. I hate this thing when I hear what people saying, na wamama wetu, natakana tuwaangalie. I'm sitting there to myself, wamama wakina nani? This we are not wamama wetu. So no, it's just about being affirmed that someone has had. Hearing and doing are 2 different things. Even the Bible says faith without actions is dead. So we can't have affirmative that has got no action. We must have affirmative action. That means there must be action put into the words of leaders. When they say we hear the women should be part of this. Women should participate. When you're doing public participation, women's voices should be heard. We should hear quality in these actions that people are talking about. And that's what you should be calling for. So that again, we do not have lip service. We do not have people just being thrown in. I said a lot of times women would be called for meetings, and what do? We serve the tea, we say the prayer, and we lead the chorus. Wamama tupatieni chorus, tunapika makofi, tunaimba. Nothing, I am a worship leader in church. Nothing wrong with leading a chorus. Tuombeni, I pray. I am a Christian, a practicing believer. There's nothing wrong with praying, but is that all that women are about? The affirmative simply must have action. We must sit at the place where budgets are being discussed, at the place where the resources are being prioritized. Those are the places that women need to sit in. Now, first and foremost, we should be worried of any actions of opening the constitution that can claw back on all our gains. And so let's not run with people's agenda, BBIs, do which ones, the kind of arrangements for 2022. They are good, but we must always have another listening lens to hear, are the women's gains being protected and being advanced? BBI should make us better than we are in the constitution. If we were to lose even a morsel or an iota of the gains that we have in the constitution, then I would personally go for women go against the BBI. So even the BBI, we ought to hear what is it in it for women. I don't want to hear, oh, sharing of positions, oh, now regional balance and which one. What is it in it for women? What is it in it for people with disability? What is in it for the young people? Someone looked at some lineup, some proposed lineup for 2022, and she asked on Facebook, actually a friend of mine, and she asked women, when I'm looking at it and seeing like 10 men all lined up saying, I'll take this one is proposed for this, where are the women and where are the young people? We don't even feature in these discussions. Secondly, we must support other people's agenda. We must not support other people's agenda to the detriment of our agenda of inclusion, and that one I've spoken about. And then thirdly, women, we must develop accountability systems for those who have accessed leadership through affirmative action. And they owe it to us to carry our agenda. And that one I have spoken about, but it is something that we ought to put in action. The access, the agenda setting, the accountability. We must ensure that it is actually in place. Number 4, women must rally together. And I'm praying that to give me 3 to 4 minutes, because I had prepared for 40 minutes, but anyway, I'll try to do it. Women must rally together for advocacy action to ensure the 2/3 gender principle is protected and implemented without fail. Now, as people realign themselves, people are realigning in parties, people are realigning in tribes, people are realigning in ethnicities, even the business community has got its agenda. Everybody is realigning themselves to ensure that the agenda goes on board as we move forward. Because realignments happen every 5 years. Every election cycle, realignments are happening. In the intervening period, everybody is working to see how do I get where I want to go in the next 5 years. My question is, even as Way is doing this and as Crown is doing this, how are we as women realigning ourselves into our agenda? And that is what I'm really loving about these forums. Not to carry people's agenda, but to align ourselves also and say, as the women's constituency, carrying 50% of the population, this is our agenda. And without us, you can fail. How do we get every woman on board from Turkana all the way to Oloitoktok, from Nyanza to Mombasa? How do we get the women on board so that then we have a critical mass that is talking about our agenda? Now, the inclusion and mentorship of young women, for me, is very important, because we must build the transitions and leadership pipelines that are smooth. I look at Daisy. I have a lot of love for her, by the way, and a lot of respect for her, because you were mentored almost at the same time. The people, the lives of our mother, Phoebe CEO, Professor Wanjiku Kabira, Julia Ojiambo, and the others, they mentored some of us who are in our 40s now. And I keep asking myself, Carol, as a challenge, what are you doing to mentor the 30s and the 20s who are behind you? Because a time will come when I cannot do. I remember when we used to go to the streets and we were doing advocacy and we were doing activism, and I would get on the streets and we would be yelling at the top of our voices. When one minister said that you know, it is like raping a woman who is already too willing or something like that. And I remember that morning we woke up wearing red. I had a red cape. I was in cover then, a red suit, and we woke out. And we went on the streets, went down Uhuru Highway and went to his office. At the age of 49, I don't have that kind of energy anymore. But how are we supporting the younger sisters now who really have that energy to do what we did and then to transition to where we are as we transition to a place now where, like Akina Dr. Kabira now and the others are sitting at an advisory position and saying, young women, you cannot do that. How are we building that pipeline to ensure that there is always someone carrying the women's agenda and carrying it with passion? It's never around money. The women's agenda, by the way, I do consultancy, and there's some things, if you do not pay me a certain amount of money, I'm not going to touch. And I think Daisy has learned that. She knows when she calls me for matters of women, I will wake up at midnight and I'll come to the table. Because it's not always about money. So how do we build that constitution that is just pushing this agenda that women must be at the table making decisions? It is for all of us to think. Now, women must not carry the common stereotypes about other women. And I'm really charging this to all of us who are in this forum so that we can tell others and we get this message moving to the women. Never, ever should we carry this, and especially this stereotype that I hate, that women are their own worst enemies. It is a horrible, horrible, horrible stereotype. Women are not there, and I say this in every forum I am in, women are not their own enemies. The system, the socialization, the tradition, the culture that taught us what we know is our enemy. It is not my sister is my enemy who thinks a woman can't lead. Somebody told her that. Somebody tried to prove that to her. Somebody has told lies about women. Somebody has refused to see the good that women see and only carry the negative that women have done, the little negative. Everybody has got a weakness. Everybody has a weakness. Why is it that everybody is harping on the few weaknesses of women? I look at a woman like Mother Karua, and to be sincere, Mother Karua stands for presidency. I'm going to vote for her. Because I know she's capable, she's able. But what do we get told? What this and the other one? Oh, women are on their way. Why don't women vote for other women? Women are threatened. I have done research. I know most women are even threatened. Some people even go into the booth saying, I am going to help this woman to vote. And she can do the voting for herself, but she gets assistance so that someone can see whom she voted for and report to her husband. And what are women supposed to do when they're done that? So women are not their enemies. Somebody else is their enemy, and we need to get that out to the women. Now, the gender agenda is all inclusive. Let's bring in all progressive thinking men, the young people, everybody must come into the 2/3 agenda to know that it's not about women. It is an all-inclusive agenda that is good for society. Now, number 8, women must learn to hold leaders accountable. Now, this issue of Muheshimiwa, and when the Muheshimiwa lands, with no pun intended, the Muheshimiwa lands with a chopper and blows dust at the people who actually voted for him or for her. It annoys me, really annoys me, because I look at it and see the way people go to the Waheshimiwa even to ask for money that actually came from their own taxes. Because even the Mama Boga pays taxes, the one who thinks they don't do any returns to KRA, they also pay a tax. They pay a tax through what? Kimbo ile wananunua, the matchstick is taxed. When you enter a matatu, you are taxed already because a lot of the percentage of the fuel has gone to tax. So you have already been taxed through whatever you pay. And so when we are also asking for accountability from these, our Waheshimiwas, people think that sometimes it is tokenism. That even for the Waheshimiwa to talk to me, it is a token. I have sometimes listened to politicians talk and to leaders talk, even civil servants. I'm not just talking about politicians, even civil servants talking to people. I have been to national schools where my children were or are, or whatever, I won't name them here. And someone would stand there and talk down at the parents. And I'm thinking this school should sincerely have been built with our taxes. It is being run by our taxes. And you sit there, you insult the parents. You sit there, you insult the citizens. So women must learn to hold leaders accountable and know that they are not being given favors. We are not going to be brash, we will not be proud. But it is important for women to be firm, to ask what actually they deserve. And that part of it is the two-thirds gender principle. The government will not be doing us a favor by implementing the constitution. It is actually, they actually owe it to us. And then finally, women must set their agenda for 2022. And I said to Sipojipanga, Utapangwa. John Maxwell, a man I love a lot, a motivational speaker and a leadership expert. He says, the pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist, the optimist will hope and expect the wind will change. But a leader will adjust their sails. And so the pessimist will sit there and complain, this wind is so bad, we are going to shipwreck, we are going to sink. Optimist is saying, I expect this to change. The way things normally go, at around 4 p.m., it'll change. But if you're a leader, the moment you see the wind, you adjust your sail. And so right now, we have seen the wind. We ought to adjust our sail as women. We ought to adjust to ensure that when it comes, whichever way it comes, we are ready for it. Ikipita na left, we are ready. Ikipitia right, we are ready. Ikipitia chini, tunaruka inapita. Ama tunaishikilia. We must be able to look and to think broadly. Kaleidoscope thinking that looks at all possibilities. That is what we should be doing as women. As we move forward towards 2022, towards the referendum, towards BBI, whatever is happening in the political atmosphere, we must panga ourselves. My parting shot is from Ralph Waldo Emerson. He says, do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. And that is my parting shot for all of us as women who are here. Do not follow the path where the path may lead. Don't follow the beaten path always, but instead look at everything. Look at the two-thirds gender principle. Look at where women we are going in the future. Beat a path and leave a trail that others can come and follow. There's a singer who sang, I said, I'm a worship leader in church. The singer who sang and said, may all those who come behind us find us faithful, and may the fire of our devotion light their way. That's what I'm going to tell women. May we be found faithful. May we be found holding the agenda. May we be found walking. Don't stop. Keep walking. I won't say like Johnny Walker, but keep walking. Thank you.
Thank you. Bravo. Thank you so much, Carol. I feel so inspired. Always very passionate and very elaborate about the things that women need to do and how we need to move. I think from your speech, I've come out with 3 very powerful things. One is how are we aligning in our agenda, in all the agendas that are going around us. The second powerful thing that I've picked from your conversation, how are we carrying everybody along and including everybody, especially the young women? The third most powerful thing is women carrying stereotypes about each other. Those are 3 very powerful things that I've picked from your conversation. And I'm glad that you are available to be passionate as you've always been. Thank you very much. I can see there's a lot of discussion going on in the chat box. Let's keep them coming. We shall address them at the end. Right now, I will invite Sophie Njage to just take us through what 2/3 gender rule or implementation means for the young women. Are you in, Sophie?
Hello?
Yes, Sophie, we can hear you. Can we see you?
My computer is a bit frozen. Let me fix that. Can you see me now?
Yes, we can see you, Sophie. Karibu sana.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Just to do a small introduction, my name is Sophie Njage. I am part of the National Women's Steering Committee, EMBU, a youth, and I'm also a student leader at Mount Kenya University, the Parklands Law Campus. Hello?
We can hear you, Sophie.
Oh, great, sorry. So I'm really excited to be a part of you guys today. And as we celebrate the Katiba at 10, we recognize the right and fundamental freedom entrenched in Article 81B that not more than 2/3 of the members of an elective or appointive body shall be of the same gender. Just a minute, let me fix something I see on my laptop. Just a minute. Oh yeah, great. So as I was saying, today as we celebrate Katiba at 10, we do recognize the right and fundamental freedom that is entrenched in our Article 81B that not more than 2/3 of the members of an elective or appointive body shall be of the same gender. And this is also echoed in Article 27.8. Kenya is further bound by various international, regional, and sub-regional instruments which uphold equitable gender representation in Parliament. This is by dint of Article 2, which makes international instrument laws to form part of our own laws. So as we celebrate this day, it is very, very important to note that since the promulgation of the current constitution in 2010, Kenya has been struggling to realize the above mentioned provisions. I know of an old Soviet joke by a guy called Tom Ginsberg, who says that there was a man who went to a restaurant, and after surveying the menu, he asked for chicken. He was told that the said chicken was not there, and the same happened for all the dishes in the menu, in that he would ask for soup, there's no soup. He would ask for maybe goat meat, there's no goat meat as well. And he got very, very upset, and he said that, I thought this was the menu and not a constitution. And the purpose of this joke, or what this joke tries to capture, is the usual perception of certain constitutions that happen to be meaningless pieces of paper without any function other than to give an illusion of legitimacy to the said regime, which makes me question, why is it that the true that gender rule that is already there is not implemented, yeah? So to narrow down to what affects young women, sorry. So historical records of women representation in Kenya have indicated a disparity lower than the world and regional average. And despite the Kenya having to legislate on gender equality, young women politicians in particular are missing at both the national and local political positions despite their demographic size. And I ask, how can a country progress economically, politically, or even socially without half its citizens participating meaningfully in political spheres and critical decision-making processes? Politics plays a very vital role in influencing the policy-making processes, and the absence of significant numbers of women and young women in positions of influence denies them a chance to influence decision and impact policy-making in general. So although the population of women and men at all levels is equally matched, political representation is heavily skewed in favor of men. Young women are even worse off, because we are talking about women in general. When now you think about young women, it's worse off, and they are hardly ever represented at both the national and local political levels. So despite efforts to enhance gender equality, young women's participation in political activities largely consists of women voters and not candidates in elective or appointive offices. So on that point, I would like to give an example with my student council in my institution, where out of 7 elective seats, I was the only lady who vied for any position, let alone get elected. And this has been the case even before, where even we would have elections at my school and no women at all would actually vie for these seats, yeah? As numbers of women in politics around the world increase, young women may become more inspired to take part in politics. This is obvious. This may be in part be because there is more women than ever being receiving higher education, participating in global workforce, and holding professional decision-making positions, which in turn should lead to a strengthened role and status of women in society, which is a really good thing. But it is important that we have more women in politics serve as positive role models for young women who aspire to make policy changes in their countries. At the same time, women face barriers than men when entering into politics, which is even more difficult for young women who, in instance, face double discrimination of age and gender, and this has created a really huge age gap. By this, I mean, when you see the women in politics, and the women who are could be described as the youth, the number of youth women who are in this appointive or the number of women youth who are in these positions actually happen to be less, yeah? And young women face barriers in the pursuit of active political roles, masculinity and patriarchal nature of politics. There's the lack of support for young women who want to assume leadership roles, the impact of societal expectations and stereotypes. There's insecurity and gender-based humiliation and violence, which are all concerns that often impact us women, yeah? And not just us women, to be in particular young women. So young women are politically very active, yeah, and quite informed voters, but they need to be supported to achieve more significant impact as political leaders. There is need to create and expand opportunities for young women to enable them become more active and effective participants in the national and local political activities, yeah? So, one of the necessary measures may be to proactively address the barriers that deter and frustrate them from benefiting from the expanded political space and legislative safeguards related to gender equity. It is also critical to raise awareness among young women, aspiring politicians and other members of the community to promote understanding and address the age-old stereotype that have continued to ensure few women succeed in the political arena, despite there being evidence that they could actually make better leaders rather. So to address the barriers young women face, measures such as targeted strategies to address the socialization processes that exclude girls from mainstream social roles, such as leadership and decision-making, targeting men with gender awareness programs, encouraging women, especially young women, to accept, embrace, and support enhancement of youth empowerment programs. There's also a need for promotion of leadership training programs for young women, establishing mentorship and internship programs for young women who are keen on leadership, and reforming the culture and practices of political parties so that they can attract more young women, and instilling transparency in the nomination of candidates for elective positions. So I was really trying to save on time because I know we are behind schedule, but I think all I am saying is there is a need to include young women in politics. Yes, it's good that the Constitution has given us a space as women, but you find that women of a certain age are still left out. And that is not a good thing. And I know here we have key stakeholders listening, and maybe this is something that you guys need to consider. Yes. So I don't know whether I've really rushed. I was really trying to save on time.
Yeah, I think, Sophie, thank you. You are precise and to the point. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to talk too much saying nothing, but you have really come up with very articulate and very serious issues that need to be addressed. Seeing you talking, I remember myself in your position, always agitating for the same thing. It's been 10 years later, and I'm proud to see you there occupying that space, because I've then moved on to the bigger women's movement. And keep it up. Keep it up. We'll be there. We will hold your hand and we will
Thank
work
you so much.
together.
Thank you.
All right. Then the next speaker will be Mushimi Amilka from Mombasa. I don't know whether she's logged in already. Milka? Mheshimiwa?
I'm in, Pauline. I'm in.
Yes, Mheshimiwa, karibu sana. Karibu sana. We want to hear from you. You will quickly introduce yourself, and then we move into the agenda of what 2/3 has been like within the county assemblies, and also specifically your county assembly in Mombasa. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Pauline. Nice to see you after a long time. I remember we were with you in Nairobi some time back. I signed in when Daisy was just completing her presentation, which I'm sure was fire, because I don't always know what she has to say. I'm doing two things at the same time, so you'll forgive me for that. Now, my name is Honorable Milka Morangare. I am a specially elected member of Mombasa County Assembly. Of course, on the basis of the 177, Article 177 of our Constitution. But may I begin by saying that I want to congratulate Crown and Uraya for the good work that they're doing, all the women who have sacrificed before us, to ensure that at least women's voices or women's representation is gone some little level than it was before. So I want to say that in the county assemblies specifically, because I know that I only have 10 minutes, in the county assemblies, the 2/3 gender rule is far from being actualized. Other than the Article 177, whereby women were nominated to the county assemblies, not much has been done to enable them to articulate their issues. Because women were nominated, yes, on the basis of Article 177, but have they been given the power? We have county assemblies where women have been denied even positions in the committees, which actually is in the Constitution. Article 81 of the Constitution provides for general principles for the electoral system, and Article 81B says, provides that not more than 2/3 of the members of elective or appointive bodies shall be of same gender. Then Article 27(8) of the Constitution requires that the state
Excuse me, Milka, 1 minute. 1 minute, Mushimiwa. Are we able to see you?
I'm hidden.
Yes, we can't see you. We are just seeing M.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
We want to see you. We want to relate with you. Yes,
thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, let's proceed.
Yeah, sorry about that. So I'm saying that Article 27(8) of the Constitution requires that the state shall take legislative and other measures to implement the principle that not more than 2/3 of the member of elective or appointive bodies shall be of the same gender. This provision, Pauline, has not been implemented to date. The low proportional representation of women in politics and governance structures across the globe has necessitated introduction of gender quotas in different countries to remedy underrepresentation. However, in Kenya, it is yet to establish an affirmative action program to implement the provision of the Constitution. We are not there yet, but as women, we need to keep pushing and play smarter in order for the principle to be realized. I know that the Supreme Court had given their, which is clear in the Constitution. However, as you know, Parliament became rogue, I'm sorry to say so, 3 times in passing the law and implementation thereof. And LSK has also petitioned the CJ to wind up Parliament as failure to pass this law negates the spirit and the letter of the 2010 Constitution. And our parties have not even tried to whip their members, so as to pass the 2/3 gender rule fully so that it can be implemented at the county assemblies. We are at the county assemblies, but when you look at the executive, you can ask yourself, how many women? In our county, may I say that women have actually been given quite a number of positions. Like we have health sector is headed by 3 women. The Katiba is the CEC, then health is Dr. Shkeli, then public health is Dr. Aisha. And even the other day, we vetted a lady to be the chair of the County Public Service Commission. So we are getting somewhere. It's not so bad, but we still have a lot where women are supposed to be recruited in appointive positions. For example, when you look at the other parts, the other organizations within the assembly, you find that men are having the lead. You find that men, even within the assembly, there's a chair, as I think it was Winnie or Catherine who just said that, a chair of a committee is a man, then the vice will be a lady. In our county assembly, we have 3 legal committee, transport committee, and I think, and delegated and legislation. Not so bad, but we still need more positions going to women, because you know, even to be elected to come to us to the assembly, because we live in a very patriarchal society where it's about council of elders with no input from women. So you'll find that few women are coming to the county assemblies. In our county assembly, we have 6 women who have been elected. Out of the 45 MCAs, we have 6. But we are saying that we need more women, even 10 to 15 coming in, so that we can have the voice of women being heard. As much as we are in the celebratory mood of the Constitution, that it has given us some leeway to be leaders, we still have a lot remaining. I want to give you an example of a county assembly that looks at women as people who are not fit to lead. The other day in Kisii County, we had the chair of caucus, Honorable Karen Magara, being suspended. Even before suspension, she had been clobbered by the men MCAs because she was agitating for the rights of women MCAs, especially nominated. As a nominated women MCA, I am entitled to an office, I am entitled to 3 staff, and I am entitled to an allocation of funds to be used in my office. But that has not happened in most of the county assemblies. So Honorable Karen Magara was kicked out of her position as a woman by men, by the way. And they went further to suspend her from the county assembly for 3 months. The case is in court. And you can imagine, the men were referring, when it went to the plenary, the men were referring to the women MCAs to be submissive as their wives, and quoting the Bible instead of quoting the Constitution. Where in the county assemblies, we are not people's wives. We are legislators, women MCAs, just like the men. So we should enjoy the same right like the men do, even as nominated. Once we are sworn in, we are supposed to enjoy the same rights as the elected MCAs, because without us, that assembly is not complete. So when women MCAs are treated as wives in the county assembly because they are supposed to be submissive, that shows you how patriarchal our communities are. And therefore, implement, and Ngek wrote letters to that effect, trying to ask the Kisii County Assembly to implement what the women MCAs are agitated for and what they deserve as women MCAs. Still, it has not happened. Why? Because everything there is being led by men, and therefore the women have not been given their voice. Implementation of the Constitution, if well implemented, it should be able to cater for such kind of cases where women are seen as, you should be given, you have been given, so you have no voice. You didn't campaign, so you have no voice here. It is because the Constitution has not been fully implemented. There's a lot of impunity. And why? It's because men are the ones who are sitting at the decision-making table, and women are not there. So how can we implement something where we are not part of? So we should, in line with the Constitution, be at the decision-making table, because every person is equal before the law and has the right to equal protection and equal benefits of the law. So it should not be that the men are the ones who get everything and the women get nothing. I want to say, going forward, that we are trying as legislators to improve legislation geared towards assisting the women MCAs so that they can in future have a voice, or in the 2 remaining years have a voice and do more capacity building. we are trying to ensure, for example, the Women Caucus chapter, that we pass a law or a policy and make it a standing committee, so that through the standing committee, we can get funding just like other committees get. And through that funding, we can do more capacity building, which will make our mandate work better, so that we can work better for the public that we represent. And I'm happy to report that in one county, I think that was passed the day yesterday, and I think maybe it's because we have a woman speaker there, Machakos County, they were able to pass that. And we are really glad about that. Then we are also saying that we need to work on laws that work to improve on areas that affect women, like the Reproductive Act, which now in our county, we are actually passing a bill on the same to ensure that we have enough protection for women when it comes to the Reproductive Act and all those, and also even maternity health centers and what have you. GBV policies should be in the forefront. We have many counties which have passed that, and we are also doing the same in Mombasa, so that women are not, one of the things that make women not to be elected is because of the violence. They are scared. They are mistreated on the ground. So if we have certain laws protecting them, then we will have more women coming up. Some of the hindrances to women effective political participation is because harsh political environment, whereby women are beaten up during elections or hijacked or kidnapped, so that they are not able to participate properly in the elective process. We have propaganda against women in every county, including ours. You will hear a woman being said, oh, yesterday this one slept with so and so, or this one is moving with so and so, but you will not hear a man being told the same. So how do we go about that? We need to create emotional, to have emotional intelligence to react to such, so that we don't play into their ploy of behaving like, oh, now you start defending yourself and so on and so forth. We have a lack of support also from fellow women. If you look at the debate, some women went to support the men. We need to be out there and portray ourselves as faithful women. Faithful to who? To the women MCAs. Are the MCAs our husbands? No. So we need to legislate, not to respect and be faithful to the men who are like us, who are the MCAs like us. Then we also have the cultural barriers, which as MCAs, we need to work towards, ask ourselves many questions. How can this culture, how can we create awareness? How can we talk to the, have good relationship with the men, so that they get to understand that we are not lesser human beings. We are equal to the task, and we are elected like them. Then we also need to work, we are trying to work for laws and educate women to have financial power, so that by empowering them through revolving funds and also NGAF funds, weather funds on the ground. Like yesterday, we gave out almost 20 million to women, women groups, because we want women to have the power in order for them to be able to have the power of money, in order for them to be able to run against men in the coming elections. So that the 2/3 gender rule, we don't have to come in through nominations. We can be elected. We are capable. We have the power. We have the brain. We are not lesser in brain to the men. Then we also have a lack of political will. The lack of political will also comes from us women. An earlier speaker has just said that we are more than 50% in the country. How come we have never elected a woman president? Or how come we have very few women governors, yet we are more? Martha Karua tried. She got very few votes. And yet it is us women who are supposed to back a woman, a fellow woman to be in leadership positions. So the 2/3 gender rule is far from being implemented, Pauline, because of the various because of the impunity that is being played by men, because women are not at the decision-making table. And these are things that we need to ask ourselves. We need to look at so that we can be at the decision-making table. Then the two-third gender role can be. We are asking for the reducible minimum of two-third gender role before we go to other things. We must advocate for the Constitution to be implemented fully before we talk of other things. I think that's all I have from me. And I rest my case.
Right, thank you, Mheshimiwa, always articulate as always, and passionate and serious about leadership. Thank you for the remarks that you have given and the comments that you have given regarding the challenges that the County Assembly members of the County Assembly are facing. We are now moving to the question and answer, the plenary session. Mushimi Amilka will be leaving, and I don't know whether there is any specific questions that one would like to ask her or address to her. When I look at the inbox, I really don't see much of questions, but more of comments. Is there anybody who has a question for Mheshimiwa? Because I know she will be leaving before we finish up, because we have about 30 minutes to finish this conversation we are having. So in those 30 minutes, probably 15 minutes we will use for questions, and then 15 minutes will be answers and final remarks. Crown Trust, if you could help the host at Crown Trust, if there is an attendee who would like to ask a question. I see one. I see a hand up. Yeah, Stella. I see Stella's hand up.
Thank you, Pauline. I don't know why someone has started hitting some nails just when I decided that I wanted to speak in this forum. And I'll only speak on one matter. I don't know whether I don't think it's a question. It's going to be a comment also as a point of information that I think will be valuable for Mushimiwa as they're dealing with the Mushimiwa current situation. Very many men normally revert to the Bible whenever they want to oppress women.
Exactly.
And a lot of them misquote the Bible. I did write some comment in the chat room, but I want to qualify the statement I have made. The Bible demands that women submit to their husbands. So it is not all women, but it is the woman who is a wife to a husband that submits to the husband. And the Bible demands that that same husband loves, honors, and respects the wife. So this arrangement is supposed to is an arrangement that is governed by certain rules, even in the Bible, that it needs to be a loving husband who honors and respects the wife, who then the wife will submit to. Okay, and there's a kind of submission that is actually defined in the Bible. When if you read the original Hebrew version, is not subservience in the form of slavery. It is submission in the form of trusting the vision and the plan that the man has for the woman. Okay, in that very same Bible, it is sinful for a woman who is married to one man to submit to another man the same way she's submitting to her husband.
Exactly.
The kind of submission dedicated to a husband is meant for the husband only. And the reason why God intended for the woman to submit to the husband is so that there will not be two centers of power in one home, which of course ends up destroying the marriage arrangement. And the marriage arrangement is a mirror of the triune of God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Okay? Now, chapter 11 of 1 Corinthians now proceeds to talk about power. Many people who read that particular section of the Bible assume it talks about hair only. When it says a man should not prophesy with his head covered, a woman should prophesy with her head covered. But the point of that particular chapter of the Bible is to educate people that if you are married as a woman, you should know that you are under the leadership of your husband, who is supposed to be leading and loving you like Christ loved the church. And your husband is being led by Christ. Okay? So if you're going to get into leadership, if you're going to vie for any position, if you're going to vie for MCA, if you're going to be appointed, nominated, whatever it is, the Bible advises you to consult your husband before you take up that kind of a position. And of course, the reason why you must do that is explained in chapter 7, where you need to submit to the man's vision. So if it does not align to the vision, then the both of you need to agree on how you'll proceed. Any woman who is not married does not need permission from anybody to exercise their leadership. Any woman who is not married does not need permission from anybody to preach in the church, apart from the lead, the overseer of the church. If the overseer says the woman can get onto the podium and preach, the woman can preach. But if the overseer needs the wife of a pastor or the wife of a man in the church to preach, then he will need to consult both the husband and the wife. So no member of parliament, no politician, no mad patriarch should come to any woman and ask them to submit to them, because there is no relationship defined by the Bible where then submission was put or implanted in us for strange men. It is only for husbands. Thank you.
Stella, before you go, are we able to see you? For those who don't know you, I know you. Can we see you?
You can see me. Sorry, I didn't realize I had not. No, you can't.
Yeah, because there are people who doesn't know you. It would be nice to just go on and wave, so that those who don't know.
I don't think I have any mechanism of activating my video.
Sorry?
I don't have a mechanism of activating my video on the webinar.
Okay. All right, then that will pass for today. And thank you for those observations. And I hope it's well noted. There was another hand up. There was Regina. I think Regina's hand has gone down. Wanjeri Nderu. Liberty, if you could help me unmute. Wanjeri. Oh, I see Regina is there. The hand is still up.
Hello.
Yes, Regina, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Now, my question is, mine is a question. Huh?
Yes.
I understand that we need to strengthen. We need to strengthen as many women as we can. My question is, what is Crown doing to ensure that this is spread? Besides now, whatever we will be doing the next one week or the next 1 month as civic educators, what else is Crown doing, especially with the county assemblies and National Assembly, or all the leaders, let me say all the leaders, to ensure that there is assistance and there is understanding as to why women must be engaged in totality, considering that we are half of the population. And my second question is, do we have programs that are directly linked to young girls who will grow to understand leadership and why they should be in leadership, and also strengthen them to ensure that there's no fear? Because I think much of our problem could be fear in terms of being leaders, by the fact that men are seen to be stronger. Thank you.
All right. I think I will park that question because that question goes to Crown Trust. I would want to pick questions that directly addresses or talks to the county assembly, so that then we will give Honorable Milka a break to leave at pleasure when she's ready to leave, because she has to go and attend to other matters in the county assembly. So I'll pack your question, Regina. That will be handled at Crown Trust. Probably it will be handled by Daisy or Winfred. So we will unmute Wanjeri Deru. I hope your question is in regards to Jerry. Liberty, if you could help me to unmute Wanjeri.
Wanjeri, kindly unmute from your end. Kindly unmute from your end. Wanjeri Nderu.
Can I leave, please? Huh?
Jerry?
Oh, sorry.
Wanjeri, kindly unmute from your end. All right, as we wait for Wanjeri to unmute. Okay, yes, you're there. We can hear you.
Sorry, yes. Hi, how are you?
We
Interesting conversations, loving them. Now, I think we need to be very careful. I know that you said we be specific to Mheshimiwa because she's leaving, but we need to be very careful about mixing issues that are religious with what it is that we are trying to achieve and what we are trying to do. Because once we start blurring those lines, they're going to use, and we are aware that the society we live in, especially the Kenyan system, the way it works, religion is used in most cases as a tool of oppression. We should not allow the conversation of submission and I don't know what to be brought into this conversation. This is not about it. This is not about the role of me as a woman, as a wife. And even if you look at that verse, it is usually misinterpreted for purposes of making sure that we are put in our place. So I would be very uncomfortable if we were to encourage a conversation where we are talking about submission, where once it's brought in, we need to shut it down immediately. It should not even be a conversation. This is not about who is submissive to who loves who. Those things, let them happen in whatever spaces that they're going to happen, but not in this conversation. Because blurring those lines is going to bring us a lot of problems when it comes to people buying into our idea. When we go, for instance, if you go to my mother and my father, and we are talking about two-third gender rule, my father, who is an educated man, is going to say, but you see, wives are, because the Bible gives them that leeway to do that. Now, if he can do that as an educated man, and he's not doing that, you know, maliciously or anything, it is the way we have been conditioned as a society to think. So once they bring that in, we need to shut it down completely. We don't even need to explain it because everybody interprets that in a different way, and it is going to be used against us. And when the public is told, even in the churches, right now, I don't understand how, for instance, we don't have the churches themselves talking about this two-third gender rule, you know, as part of their, because we do get, like the church I go to, where I worship, for instance, they're very, very clear about what they term as theft of public resources. I would love to see the senior pastor or somebody in there talking about the two-third gender rule. You get, because they do talk about these things in their sermons. But when we start bringing Teresa submission, I don't know which verse has said what, that is a way to shut us up. And we should not allow it as women. We need to reject it. We need, every time they bring it up, we step on it. Okay, I'm done. Bye.
Thank you, Wanjeri. I'd like to hand over to Eunice. Eunice Oyule, you can unmute your mic and make your contribution. Eunice, unmute your mic.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is it's important for us to be able to know what really we are fighting, because if then we are going to speak to women and men, we are going to speak to the society at large. So we need to know what are those things that really keep women from getting into leadership, and religion is one of them. So we cannot ignore religion, because we are not just talking to people in the communities, but even in the churches, there are people in the churches who, if they know what the 2/3 gender principle really means, then it's something that is gonna be totally new to them. And so there are things that we cannot ignore. And I think what we are basically doing is pulling down these strongholds that have held people in a patriarchal society for a very long time. And so we need to know what those strongholds are for us to be able to move. Number two, what I wanted to say is that Parliament is facing dissolution. So we risk getting again people, relatives to the politicians who are against the 2/3 gender principle. So we risk them having their own relatives in these positions of power. And once they have their own people in these positions of power, who are women, these are people who are not going to represent us. So how do we go about this? Thank you.
Thank you, Eunice. Maybe I'll take the last one from Sarah Mohoya. Can you unmute your mic?
Right. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, mine is very, very brief, and I've been listening to the entire conversation. And first, I want to really congratulate Daisy and the team at Crown Trust. One major reason, the fact that you have dared to be disruptive. And I think this is really what we need to do. And so having said that, I want to pick up that conversation on the churches and who. You know, it's very, very easy for us to pass the buck, to ask Crown Trust. So what is Crown Trust doing? So what is ENA doing? I work for Eco Network Africa. So what is so-and-so doing? How about we ask ourselves, we turn around that question and ask, in my space, because we all have spheres of influence. In my sphere of influence, what is it that I can do to advance one bit of the common women's agenda, or the agenda of women's equality and women's representation, so that we can own the problem? And once we own the problem, we will then contribute to providing solutions, not as who is doing what, but together we all have bits and pieces of the solution. And then finally, on the churches, there is no doubt that indeed our churches are very, very male. And I speak here with a bit of experience, having worked with the churches in many different capacities, and having worked with political parties as well. They are very, very male, and we need to enter those spaces and ensure that we actually speak gender issues and women's equality to those spaces. And it's not just churches. We look at the trade unions, look at the professional bodies, look at routers. We really have a lot of work to do. And I am saying that as individuals, we all have a responsibility. This week, I got requested by churches to do for them a statement that they want to share with the nation. And I made sure that I put in the 2/3 gender rule as one of the issues that have not been implemented, because you remember that churches were at the forefront of pushing for the No campaign. And so we all have different opportunities. Mine was to put as a line that among the issues that have not been accomplished as we celebrate 10 years is the gender equality, among others, of course. So take the responsibility. Let us be prepared to be disruptive. And I again congratulate Crown Trust for bringing us together to discuss this matter. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you. Pauline, I'll hand over back to you.
Sorry, guys. I ran out of charge. I had to log back myself in. I think I left it at the point where Wanjeri was talking. I see Sarah has already talked. There's Kiprotich. Has Kiprotich spoken?
Not yet.
Okay, shall we? Kiprotich? Nyetich?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Is everyone getting me?
Yes, we can get you.
Okay, I'm going to teach. Personally, I'm one person in women and youth empowerment. And currently, I work in the youth space.
Hold on, Kiprotich. You're not very clear. There's some distraction where you are. We can't hear you properly. Go ahead.
Okay, I hope you will be able to hear me now clearly. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. It's not clear, but just go ahead. We see if we'll get you as you go.
Pauline, you can't get me yourself.
No, we can't get you clearly.
You can pass me over as I try to work on my technical problem. You can pass over for now.
Maybe you could type your comments and questions in the chat. There was, before I went offline, there was a question for Mushimi Amilka. I don't know whether she's still on or she's left.
She's left.
She's left. Yeah, because there was a question in the question and answer from Fadili, I think. Is Fadili? I don't see the question though. I don't know where the question has gone to. There was a question from Fadili. Anyway, I don't see any other question, hands up. So I think I will give Winfred to tell us more about how Crown Trust. There was a question from Regina, how Crown Trust will involve the county assembly and what civic education will be happening in the county assemblies and which counties then will Crown Trust be in doing civic education.
Thank you, Pauline, for this opportunity. With the Some Women Holding the Line project, we are working with members of the MCS, Women MCS National Caucus. That's made up of members of the caucuses from all the 47 counties. And for the project, we are working in 20 counties with the MCS from there, and also the regional ones and the executive of the Women's Caucus too. We'll be linking the civic educators, the Uraya ones, and the national women coordinators with the area MCS for further execution of that. I think Daisy can respond on the National Assembly question.
Hello, Winnie?
Yes.
What was the National Assembly question?
What we are also doing about reaching the National Assembly to make them understand on why they should engage women.
Well, you know, over the years, one of the things that we have been doing is really trying to work closely with KEWOPA and women members of parliament to build solidarity and support. I think Caroline Lintari in her presentation really made it very clear about how, first of all, the solidarity and women working together is really what got us where we are right now. And for as long as women are fragmented and operating in different spaces, speaking at each other and not together, we always have that problem. So we've been seeking ways of collaborating with KEWOPA to be able to reach out to women parliamentarians And many of the initiatives that we've been doing, even in terms of like the cost of the research that was done on the cost of implementing the 2/3, the scorecarding, whenever we are releasing these, or even when we are compiling them, we do it, we always invite them to know what we are working on, and also to disseminate, to be our voices in the spaces where we cannot reach. So really, it's a work in progress. And I think that we will continue to reach out to them. In the elections, we usually work with women. I think in the last election, we supported how many women altogether, Winnie? Aspirants, or candidates rather?
About 30.
Yes, about 30. And of those, how many of the ones we supported? I think 18 or so were elected.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so.
And in addition, there were also some MCAs elected.
Yes, so we continue to do, what we can on our part. And of course, we collaborate together with other civil society organizations. CREW is a close working partner who we collaborate together with, and several other organizations trying to reach out to women. State Department of Gender has put together a platform known as the Common Women's Agenda. This platform has members of parliament, civil society groups, women's rights organizations, the National Gender and Equality Commission, and it is a space where we're able to interact. We have academicians as well, women academicians, Professor Wanjiku Kabira, Professor, why is her name? Cameron Botte. Cameron Botte, Professor Catherine Dungo. We have quite a few women in academia, part of it. So there is effort to collaborate, for collaboration with women's rights organizations and duty bearers, to see how better we can consolidate our voices to be able to make an impact, So not just working in silos, but how well can we work together? And so, platforms like these, I think, go a long way towards being able to harness a greater impact of women and to give the necessary pushback. And so we just have to keep at it until we make some breakthrough.
Okay, thank you, Daisy, for that. I do have a question that is directed to you. The question is there is urgent need for true alternative women political leadership to safeguard the affirmative action provisions in the 2010 Constitution. 10 years after Constitution promulgation, are the current women politicians in Senate, National Assembly, and county assemblies rescuing the weaknesses witnessed in the legislative bodies?
Pauline, can you just repeat that question?
There is an urgent need for true alternative women leadership, political leadership, to safeguard the affirmative action provision in the 2010 Constitution. 10 years after the Constitution promulgation, are the current women politicians in Senate, National Assembly, and county assemblies rescuing the weaknesses witnessed in the legislative bodies? Are we seeing them doing something towards rescuing the weaknesses within implementation of the 2/3 gender?
First of all, let me say this, it's not even for a lack of trying. To be honest, women members of parliament from the onset, by and large, have pushed this agenda. But there has been serious sabotage, and sabotage that the women themselves are not able to control. And I think that we mustn't be so hard on them, okay? Because as has been said before, and I think Caroline really brought this out in her keynote, is that the exclusion of women has been systemic and for the longest time possible. And with the opening up of spaces, that space still remains by and large controlled by the system that has excluded women, to the extent that even where women leaders have sought to exercise their authority, they are sabotaged by the same system that seeks to penalize them for exercising their authority. I think Milka has spoken about it with the women MCAs, and how even when they are there and they demand their rights, they are deliberately excluded and pushed to the periphery. And the same is true of the women members of parliament. And even when we get to cabinet level, we must also appreciate that this is a relatively new space. Women have come from being excluded completely, almost being excluded, where we were just counting one few numbers here and there, to now being, brought into the mainstream with a minimum threshold of a third. And actually, when you think about it, that a third requires at a minimum 117 women. Those are many women. And you're drawing from a pool of people who have been by and large excluded over the years. So we must also applaud. We cannot be too hard on the women who have been in that space, because trailblazing also implies, it is like a new path that is being cut out. So it's like, you are going through the bush and you're having to cut away at, the virgin bush to clear a pathway. And I will say this, even if we look at the legislative agenda, when we look at the issues that have been addressed since we got the new constitution and we got women in, we will find that many socio-economic issues have sought to address those issues. We've seen passage of the domestic violence bill. We've seen marriage bill. We've seen them bringing food security laws. We are seeing them bringing issues around education. So the issues that are pertinent to communities, this is what we are seeing being passed, in the legislatures. Sorry. So I think that in the midst of the challenges that the women have faced, I think they have done reasonably well. And even for me, the level of pushback that is being given to try and crowd the women out, for me, is testimony that they are beginning to see that women are beginning to change the focus of leadership to a more people-centered and addressing social economic issues that will impact positively people's lives. We're seeing, that they are pushing, we're seeing the state becoming more responsive to issues that address even the girl child. The state is now giving sanitary towels. The state is now giving more bursaries are going, the education sector, much more is being done, in terms of addressing the needs of people. And I think that is attributable by and large to having a presence of women in leadership. So moving forward, I think that what we need to do is not so much try and fault the women for operating in a difficult environment, but look at what more needs to be done. And the what more that needs to be done is that we need to come together as women and have a very clear strategy, because we know right now the problem that we're having is that we are not controlling that space. Controlling that space means women must become active politically and not waiting for you to be gotten from your bed, because nobody's going to come and get you from your bedroom to become politically active. Can women begin to get active in political parties, join political parties, have an opinion, get used to, rough and tumble? We are waiting to be given things. Power doesn't give anything. Power does not concede anything without a demand. And so we must make demands, even in the political party spaces. We must not wait for them to, as they say, come and give us anything, because nothing is going to be given to us. Everything that we have today, even that constitutional framework that we celebrate as women's gains, is as the efforts that women have put together, strategizing and working together to get them. Everything that women have gotten from the state is by virtue of them organizing around their issues and demanding to be given those issues. So we mustn't sit back and wait. We must continue giving pushback, and we are at the threshold. The time is now. We are at the threshold. Parliament is facing dissolution. Why? Because we have given pushback. They are not able to sit pretty anymore excluding women. Why? Because women are giving pushback. So we must continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Daisy. I look at the time we are supposed to be closing because we said we close at 12:30. I request for your patience for about just 15 minutes because there are two questions that I would want to give to Caroline. Then after that, we will just have the closing remarks for the panelists. Caroline, there are two questions I want to give you to respond to. One is from Wema Fadili. Wema Fadili is asking, what should be done to enlighten women in rural areas who are often forgotten lot so that they can be able to demand a seat at the table, for example, in community projects, board of management, in schools and other platform of influence, and not wait for invitation by men. I think Daisy has partly answered that question, but I would like you to pick it up as well. Then there was a question that came into the chat box that was talking about the exclusion of women in health services. And yes, I have seen there is that, and I feel it and I know it. Like in insurance, you will find that they exclude things like contraceptives, things like stillbirths. They are not covered within the insurance. So that's an issue that we probably need to address, and we need to run with it and pick it up. We would like to hear what your opinion is in regards to that.
Thank you, Pauline. It's really been interesting listening to all of us. And especially on some of the, I've just been reading some of the chats and seeing what everyone feels. Let me respond to the questions that that Pauline has raised, that people have raised in the chat, in the Q&A. And then maybe I'll just make one comment as I end about issues of religion and such very quickly. Now, on women in the, how to include women in the rural areas, one, I would say that first and foremost, we need to recognize that women have their own, we not have, because I'm also part of that. Women, we have our own system of organizing. And women are especially organized around our chamas and our women groups. We were doing policies on FGM in various counties, and I looked at 6 counties where I was developing the policies, and I just went through what the Ministry of Social Services, the departments of social services in the counties have in terms of women groups within counties. And some counties have over 300 women groups. Very active, doing table banking and doing many other things. Women are organizing themselves around everything else, around the issues of the social pillar and the economic pillar, if you want to look at the 3 pillars of development according to a blueprint, apart from the political one. And so my personal stake would be, let us use the existing systems that women are using to organize themselves economically, socially, and just enter the political agenda. Because if we now start coming up with other systems, with other structures, then it will just be an addendum. But it's very easy to organize women within the way they organize themselves. Because already, and I can tell you people, good people, I can tell you stories that I have collected as I do my M&E of projects, as I do my policy and such and training, of how effective women organizing is. Women are extremely, extremely organized people. And so why don't we use the same, and I believe Crown actually is doing that through the grassroots organizations. the best way would be to use what already exists to be able to organize women to come into the agenda. The one thing that I know about women, and I have learned this having been brought up in the rural areas where it was not really about elitism. You know, people always talk about women elites and you know, the fact that we are talking from Nairobi, talking from hotels and so on and so forth. I believe a big crowd of us here, both men and women, grew up in the rural areas. So what used to happen? I always like giving the analogy of where I grew up in Meru, that I grew up in the family that I grew up, but in the midst of very severe poverty. I tell people I saw guys with jiggers on the elbows. Wamekuliwa na jiggers mpaka elbows. That is where I grew up. But by the time we are reaching summer, when the women's organizing, the chamas, and when women were buying for each other ng'ombe and buying for each other mabati, you know, women decided we are going to stop to pick a samadi. I don't know, I'm trying to get the English word. You know, we're putting the cow dung on walls. I don't know what is the English word for that, but just making mud walls. And they said, no, we need to stop thatching our roofs. And they sat down in their small chamas of 30 women and so on and started buying iron sheets for each other. And sooner than later, the whole place was just changed completely. You could barely get at that house. Then they started buying for each other cows. Watoto wakunywa maziwa. And they started buying for each other grade cows. Then they used to be called grade cows. you know the exotic breeds. And they would do changa, 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 buy for one. Then changa, 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 and buy for another one. And they would sing for that cow, taking it. And I have seen lives the water projects in the rural areas when I was growing up were actually organized by the women. And so for me, women's organizing exists. We just need to take advantage of what is already on the ground. And secondly, to ensure that it is not hijacked. I want to very quickly, Pauline, give a very short analogy of the Somali women. When the Somalia government started organizing now how to come back and put some form of structure into the chaos that came up in 1991 after the government collapsed. Now there are four major clans in Somalia, and then there are the smaller clans. And so they came up with what they call the 4.1 formula. 4 major clans, and then one slot for all the other smaller clans now to be able to nominate people into parliament. And the women are totally left out. Why? Because the clans are for men. They're the leaders. They're the ones who represent clans. Women don't represent clans. And so Akina Asha and other women who are organizing the women, they came up with a concept which they called the Sisters of the Sixth Clan. That means, and when talking about advocacy, we all know about advocacy. They are the open spaces, they are the invited spaces, but they are the created spaces. And so the women created a space for themselves, and they called themselves the Sisters of the Sixth Clan. And the Sixth Clan actually was given an extra slot, a 6th slot. So he said, fine, men, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 slots for the major clans, then you have 1 slot for the minor clans, who are all going to nominate men into parliament. Now, the women are a clan by themselves, and they call themselves the 6th clan. So what are we saying? We are saying women must first and foremost have conversations among themselves. Because where we are losing the agenda is going in without having had a proper conversation like we are doing now. Coming up again, I go back to saying we must come up with our agenda, which we must now take down the women in the rural areas, or even collect the agenda bottom up, because that is the other system. Either already that agenda is already cast, it's in the constitution, taken down, but also collect the agenda from bottom up from the women that now can be carried into what you're talking about. And that is what is going to help us. And let me tell you, a woman who understands what she needs to do is unstoppable. So the moment we are able also to get these at grassroots, all of us, because I also believe I'm a grassroots woman, by the way. I am a serious believer in that, because I breastfeed the same way. I also go through the same struggles. I also cook in the kitchen like every other woman. So I'm also grassroots. If all of us can now get on board and speak one voice, it's going to help us. Now, the second thing that I talked about, and I go back, I said, sometimes when you go to the women, we properly haven't cast our agenda. And I'm liking what Crown is doing in other organizations, casting an agenda for women, casting a vision for women. Now, someone said the essence of leadership is actually having a vision, because you cannot blow an uncertain trumpet. You must be sure of the tune when you're blowing your trumpet. You just can't wake up in the morning and start just blowing a trumpet. You must create a tune, then blow it. So if we really want to capture the women at the grassroots, the first thing we need to do is capture this vision that brings us together, all of us, and then let everybody run with that vision. So let's ensure that everybody understands what is, we have said tujipange. Let's panga ourselves and ensure everybody is running with that particular vision. Now, someone also said what cannot be measured cannot also not be done. And so that is the essence of us having an agenda and having a vision. Because the moment we have something, then we can even measure it. To what extent are we all women? And these divides of rural and grassroots and urban and whatever women, that is another divisive point, by the way, that we as women must refuse. Because if you're talking about women in the rural areas, I'm in touch with my mother. So what is the difference between what she thinks and what I think? I have been with her. I go down, I listen to the women, they tell me what they want. We are carrying the agenda. I tell them what we are doing, they tell me what they are doing. So women are also, the women in the rural areas and the women in the urban areas, they are talking to one another. Women organizations are down at the grassroots, raising awareness, talking about which issues, listening to women's issues from there. So this divide, again, is another thing that we must demystify. That it has been used to divide us, that women in the rural, women in the urban. So as much as sometimes the women in the urban might have a little bit more space to talk about the issues, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that they talk about Nairobi issues. It means that they also talk about issues of women who are in Turkana land, when women cannot be able to access their parts. The Nairobi women can access, but those ones, we also take the agenda. So I think that one needs to be, we need to be careful about it. The second thing is about women, the exclusion of women in health services. And I think this is more or less of an advocacy issue, and especially those who are working in the area of health. And we can look at how it has worked in other sectors. Let me pick a very good example of, like, in education. Before, when as people were growing up, if a girl got pregnant, your life was over. It was over for you in education. If you look at it today, now we have reached the point where women have advocated and have spoken, and allies of the women's of women's issues advocated, until a girl now can actually go get pregnant, stay in school until when she's ready to give birth, go and give birth and come back to school. And I speak from a point of knowledge, because some of you have said here before, my husband is actually a principal of a school, so I know. And they don't even chase girls anymore. Oh, go away there, I mean, because you got pregnant. They say stay in school until when you totally cannot stay anymore. Go give birth, breastfeed for a short while. If you do not stay out for too long, just come and continue and catch up. If you stay out for too long, just go back one class behind. And so we can use what has happened in education. We can use what has happened in the banking sector now. I mean, it's not like before, where your husband had to sign for you alone. And now you can go, and if you give your collateral, if you have a salary, you can get your loan. You just need to get people who can guarantee you. So we have had gains, and we can use the same gains to also talk about the issues in the health sector. And secondly, let's also remember that we have a lot of gains in the health sector. For example, the free maternity care. We have many things that we have actually as women, and that can encourage us to also now look at what is not working and be able to advocate for the same. But as I said, and especially on matters delivery, on matters postnatal, prenatal, and especially early childhood care, those are things that should not be compromised, because those things again fall squarely on the woman. Prenatal care is on the woman, delivery is on the woman, and even a child up to around about 5 years is in the hands of the women. And so those are advocacy issues that we ought to take up and ensure that as you carry the women's agenda, this is actually part of the agenda of the women. Now, finally, Pauline, I said I'll just make one final comment, just to say, on matters religion. People I have seen in the chat, a lot of things, people saying, oh, it is not in the Bible, others saying, don't bring religion here. Religion is with us to stay. What we need to do, and someone actually rightfully said that people use religion, and when you say religion, we're not talking just about the Bible. It is both Christian religion, it's both Islam, it is, even when you go to Hinduism and everything, and even the African traditional religion, it has always been used as a substitute for patriarchy, or a cover-up for patriarchy. So when you look at, like, for example, when people talk about in the Bible and say that women are not supposed to speak in public, and they quote Paul and say, Paul says that women should go and ask their husbands the questions back at home. They should not speak in public. The same people do not want to tell you about a woman called Deborah in the Bible, who actually was a judge and who led the armies of God in battle. When the men were sitting back, she was leading battle. If you look at the Quran, some things that are quoted in the Quran are actually not there. For example, if you look at even the issue of female genital mutilation, it is not in the Quran. But what do people say? The Quran, the religion says that women should actually be circumcised. It is not right. It is actually wrong. It is culture. If you look even at the African traditional religion and generally the African culture, a lot of things that people push and say, this is our culture. If you look at it very closely, it's actually not in the culture. It is just people just being mean to women. I think I would just say that. It's just people being mean to women. And so let's also have a right perspective. And even the ones by there who are atheists, those who don't believe in any religion, even they themselves are also pushing an agenda. So let's not get blocked and let's not agree to all these lenses of religion, of of culture and all that, to put us in some certain box. And women should also, someone allow me to quote the Bible. It says, be ready with an answer to those who ask you about what you believe. So it is important also to arm ourselves with information and knowledge, so that when someone is misquoting the Bible, misquoting the Quran, misquoting culture, misquoting this one, misquoting the Constitution, then you have the right information. And I think women and men of goodwill, we all ought to get out there and get our information right. And I think that is it is of a lot of importance, and it is going to help us in the long run. Finally, what I say, a final shot, is how do we end discrimination against women? It is very simple. How do we stop it? How do we stop discrimination about women? The answer is simply stop discrimination against women, period.
Thank you, Carol. That's your parting shot?
Yes, it is.
That's your closing remarks?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Carol. I guess we've already reached 12:47. So quickly, I just have two more people who I would like to give closing remarks. I will go to Sophie Njage, and then I will move to Daisy. Sophie, if you would give your closing remarks.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
So number one, I'm really happy to have been a part of this. I've learned a lot from the panelists and also the people who are commenting on the chats. I'm just reading some of these comments. I'm like, yeah, yeah, it's really, really wise, very, very wise words, and a lot of knowledge being spewed here. So as a closing remark, I just like to repeat what I said, that issues of women are not just women in general. It's really good that we tend to focus, or not rather focus, but it's really good that we do not discriminate certain ages from being included in the said, the shared cake. Yes, we've come a really long way to be where we are, and it's really good that we do consider women of certain ages, especially young women who are both discriminated by age and the fact that they are women also. So other than that, I'm really hoping everyone has a really good day, and I'm really happy to have been with you guys. Yes.
Thank you, Sophie. Looking forward to meeting you physically. I'm sure we will meet sooner or later. as we are both members of the National Women's Steering Committee. I'll move to Daisy to make her final remarks. And Daisy, as you make your final remarks, there is someone who has asked, Jen Murutu. She has asked, what is the outcome of this webinar? Do we conclude it by demanding the 2/3 gender rule? And if so, how?
So let me start by answering that. Yes, we demand for it. And I think that we have essentially exhausted our court options because, you know, the judiciary has been faithful, at least by and large, apart from, of course, the Supreme Court majority opinion, which set us on a very wrong path. But the High Court has been consistent in affirming and reaffirming the 2/3 gender principle, and we have the court orders. From here on now, I think the thing is we must push. As I said earlier on, Parliament is facing dissolution because they have not implemented the 2/3. And I think that this is where we must give pushback. So now it is to push the Chief Justice to advise the President to dissolve Parliament. We need to have consequences for women's exclusion. You know, I have said this before and I'm going to say it again. One of the biggest reasons why we have not made the kind of impact that is needed on the 2/3 gender principle is because in Kenya, there has been absolutely no political cost to shortchanging women, okay? And for as long as there is no political cost, then the politicians are not going to move because what we lack is political will. We need to make that cost punitive, that you are no longer, that half of the population refuses completely to be excluded. We will not be taken back to being invisibilized by patriarchal structures that simply give themselves privileges by virtue of a lottery of birth. Men can no longer decide that they have more rights than women when none of us chose to be born either male or female. Kenya belongs to all of us. The Constitution has affirmed this. Women are inherently equal. We shouldn't have to fight for it. But because the men have decided that they want to pursue this right and oppression against women, then it behoves us as women to rise up and demand that space that has been given to us. So the next step from here, and this must be our next push, we must organize and take the battle now to the judiciary because this thing sits right now at the feet of Chief Justice David Maraga. Chief Justice David Maraga has in his hand the power to give the political cost for shortchanging women. There is a petition that requires Parliament to be dissolved. And the Constitution says that the CJ, having taken judicial notice of Parliament's failure to implement the 2/3, not that they are trying, because right now the Speaker is saying they are trying because they have CJ, the special interest groups. And I want to say this, women are not a special interest group. Women are bona fide citizens. You know, special interest groups' requests can be denied, but you cannot deny rights and entitlements to citizens, okay? Women are not a special interest group. So Parliament can no longer play this game where they say, yes, 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 we have a bill and they take it round in circles only to fail at the last minute. Dissolve Parliament. That is the call that we need coming out of this webinar. Dissolve Parliament. If Parliament are not going to implement the 2/3, let Parliament be dissolved. Parliament is derelict in its duty and the President must dissolve Parliament. The Constitution does not give them any options. That is the way we should go. And so I want to thank everyone who has taken the time to be part of this webinar and part of the discussion. I can see there's a very vibrant discussion going on around matters of religion and beliefs. But I want to say this, that barring everything, regardless of what religion you belong to, if you are male, if you are female, we have equal rights in this country. The Constitution recognizes it. The 2/3 gender principle is a core pillar of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And without it, nothing is constitutional. And therefore, for as long as the 2/3 gender rule remains unimplemented, then we must ensure that those guys who are refusing to implement it must be taken out of the way, because they are the barriers. They are the barrier to us being able to fully exercise our political rights as women. Thank you, Pauline.
Thank you very much, Daisy. Always a powerhouse, very clear and articulate and precise to what you mean and what you're saying. Thank you very much for that. We had a polling. We had asked a question: do we have the political goodwill towards the implementation of the Constitution, specifically the 2/3 gender principle? And 24% says yes, 76% says no. So clearly the nays have it. There is no political goodwill towards implementation of the Constitution. And Daisy has been very clear in saying what should be the next course of action. And the next course of action is to dissolve Parliament. When I look into the inbox, I see Stella has a very interesting conversation that she would like to pick with Carol. Stella Lochodo would like to pick a conversation with Carol, but because we are running out of time, I think that can be picked in once we have closed the session. So I'll give it back to Crown Trust, Liberty. We started with a prayer. I think it's important and paramount that we close with a prayer. I want to thank everybody who was logged in. I also want to thank those who have been engaging in the inboxes. There are very interesting conversations going on there. And for sure, these are conversations that we would sit here the whole day to go through them, because you can see passion, you can see excitement, you can see women really want to move. We want to take what is rightfully ours. So I thank you all, and I look forward to meeting you guys soon, either virtually or physically, because I know most of you. Thank you very much. Liberty, if you would take us through with a word of prayer. And then we would log off, guys will log out as they so please, while Carol maybe and Stella would actually, Carol, you would pick the question. I'm sure you've seen the question Stella is asking in the inbox. Thank you very much. I'm glad to have been here and be part of this.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pauline. Thank you for, for the moderation that you've done. We thank you all for joining in. And as Daisy has said, the conversation will not stop, on this webinar. We will continue even, far beyond this. So this was just like, tulikuwa tunajikumbusha kule ambapo tumetoka na kutilia mkazo ya kule ambapo tunaenda. So this is just the beginning, or rather it's the continuation of the journey. So we won't stop here, we'll continue with organizing, without further much ado, I think we'll have to pray, and then we will close the forum, at this point. So let us say a word of prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this forum that we've had. Thank you for the resolutions that have been raised. Thank you for the points that we've got. Empower us even for the work that is ahead, because much is ahead. Empower us even as we push, for the implementation of the 2/3 gender rule, even as we push for the, the constitutionalism of cabinet, of parliament, of public, public appointed position. Give us the grace even as we push, for the dissolution of this parliament and a cabinet, because it is not constitutionally constituted. Give us the grace. Empower the women movement as we go ahead, and give us the grace in this season. Be with us in everything that we do. We thank you for the forum that we just had. Thank you for the conversations. Empower us to proceed in this work. We thank you. Bless us as we depart. Bless our family members. Bless the works of our hands. And bless each and every respective person who happened to join in this forum. Be with us in everything that we do. In the name of Yeshua, we pray and believe. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. So you can leave at your own pace or pleasure. And thank you so much for joining in. Asante. Thank you, Pauline.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Daisy.
Carol, I hope you haven't left yet, so that you could actually have a conversation with Stella.
I'm around.
Stella, where are you? Have you seen Stella's question in the chat box?
I think I saw about Turkana.
Yes, about Turkana.
I'm trying to. I've read so many things down there.
Pauline, I have a suggestion. Pauline, I have a suggestion. I don't know if it's workable. Is it possible we send Carol the question and maybe the email address that was addressed to her, and then she can answer, she can think through it and then give an answer to that. Is that workable so that we can end the meeting, because there are people who still hang around because we are here.
Okay, okay.
That would be good.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Stella, I hope that is satisfactory to you. So we shall end the meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Carol. You've been fantastic.
Asante.
Thank you. Bye. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Pauline. Thank you, Carol.
Keep well.